Awesome. So, well, again, for the second time, it's a pleasure to have you on the show. I really
Thank
appreciate you
you.
coming on.
Yeah, I'm excited about it.
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, first try this. You were telling us how many years are you married now?
26 years. We just celebrated on the 14th.
Okay. And you were giving us some advice. Married, right? Something like that.
You said advice.
Yeah,
Well, you were
yeah.
asking me like, what's the secret? And I was telling you, it's funny because, 26 years, it's not that common these days. You don't see a lot of people who have been married that long, at least in our experience. So we get a lot of people asking us, what's the secret? And honestly, we think about it, but it's like there's no real secret. But definitely, I was, mentioning to you like communication has been key for us, just learning how to talk to each other, how to listen to each other, just be really transparent about our feelings.
You were saying there's some ingredients that you need to have to stay married for that long. And you're right, it is very uncommon nowadays.
Yeah, I mean, for us, it's just communication is huge, just being very transparent with each other, open about our feelings, communicating about just everything, day-to-day things, not letting things fester, because relationships, you're gonna go through times where things aren't always easy. And if you talk that through, you communicate and always let your partner know how you're feeling, it's much easier to work as a team. And, also just prioritizing each other. I think we can all get busy with hobbies and work and life and, forget that your family is so important, your spouse is so important, and they need to know that and they need to be a priority. And so for us, our marriage and our children trump everything.
Mhm.
Bodybuilding will never trump my husband and my family. Work will never trump my husband and my family. We just prioritize. And for us, that's been key.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where like bodybuilding can be consuming, right? And some people just allow that to take control of everything, even their personal lives. So they'll they'll give up what's really important. I haven't been married as long as you have, but we're coming up on our 15-year anniversary in
Oh, that's
May.
smart. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Congrats.
So thank you. So I'm, it's just it's sad to see people that on all other aspects of their relationship is good, but they allow other things to creep in and then kind of mess up, what they have. It's really sad. So
It is. I see it often and it really is sad. It hurts my heart, especially in bodybuilding, because, it can be a bit of a selfish sport. So I'm grateful that Andre and I do it together because it does require a lot, a lot of time in the gym, time prepping meals, time posing, all of those things. So thankfully we've been able to integrate it into our family and it's worked out well. But yeah, I see a lot of people where it is just really difficult sometimes to balance that and you kind of lose touch with your partner.
yeah. How did you get into bodybuilding? Like what motivated you to get into the sport?
So that's funny because it's my husband actually. It was his bucket list thing. And I've been into fitness. I mean, we've been into
Mhm.
fitness ever since probably for him, he was a Marine, so he was always fit, PT, he was football before that.
Mm.
So he's always been very active. But after our third child, I really had trouble losing the weight. So we started doing like aerobics classes together. So this is back in like 2003. We were doing aerobics classes and stuff together, having a good time. And it just became one of his bucket list things like he wanted to compete in a bodybuilding show. And so I went with him and, me and the kids are there supporting him. He killed it. But I'm watching these women on stage and I'm like, these women are phenomenal. Some of them are older women, some of them are mothers. And I just thought, wow, like I would really love to give this a shot. And at this point, I already had five children, five C-sections. I'm already like, at that time, I was like approaching 40 already. So it was like, okay, the nerves are in there, the self-doubt is in there, but I was like, I'm going to give this a shot. And this was pre-wellness. So it was bikini for me then to kind of enter into. And so that was my first experience. That's what got me into it. I did a bikini show and I probably would have never competed again if it had not been for wellness coming along because bikini unfortunately was just not a fit for me.
Why do you say that? Can you hear me?
Oh, you're down a little bit. I can hear you. It just got low.
Can you can you hear me now? But
Perfect.
okay, sorry. Yeah. So why was bikini not a fit?
Just for me personally, I was already a little bit more lower body dominant, and it was a real struggle for me to bring my lower body down to the level that I needed to probably
Mhm.
be a good fit in bikini and be the right look. I am shorter, 5'1", a little bit heavier on the bottom. So it was just a harder shape for me to fit into. And I just didn't enjoy being that small
Mhm.
personally. I
Mhm.
really loved lifting heavy, and I wanted to put on more size and I wanted to continue to grow. So I went to a seminar, and Sandy Williamson actually told me she really thought I should do this new division called wellness.
Mhm.
And that just got me so excited. And, just I was like, I definitely want to get back into it. I started hitting legs and glutes harder, growing, just feeling great. And it really, I tend to be smaller up top. So it really ended up being like such a perfect division for me because it's the one division, as you know, that's a little unsymmetrical. So
Mhm. Mhm.
I've
And
just been loving it.
I just think that division has really opened up bodybuilding because there were so many women that just they wouldn't, like you, didn't fit into bikini because it was too small and didn't fit into figure because figure has its own specific, they're going for, and and they were kind of stuck in that middle area, that gray area. And so when wellness came, I think it opened up floodgates for all these women that kind of fit into that division. Even some that that would jump from other divisions into wellness. So they weren't like fresh. Some of them were already competing
Yeah,
regularly, and then they were like, "Oh, well, this is fit for me." So, I mean, I thought
exactly.
it was great. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. That was an amazing experience for me going to that seminar and having Sandy Williamson plant that seed in my head. She was like, her, Sheila Brown, Bernadette, they were all doing a little judging panel and they were like, wellness. And
Mhm.
it just got me excited about bodybuilding again. Like, okay, just like you said, there was a place that I kind of fit because I was a little smaller on top. So figure didn't feel like a good fit.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. With figure, you really have to grow that up, and it's like I love figure. Figure is great, but it's
Beautiful.
just everybody can't fit into that,
Yeah.
and wellness really took off. I remember that I think it was the year of COVID that I was actually planning to go to the Arnold, and they were going to have that wellness initially, and that's when Fran won, and
Yeah.
I think it was still amateur show at that point, yet they haven't fully made it into a pro division
Pro.
yet. And so, like, of course, they were competing, but there was no audience because of COVID and everything like that.
Right.
And so that was really the beginnings of it in the IFBB. What do you think about where wellness, like from that now where it's come, and do you think it's going the right direction, the wrong direction? Like, what would you like to see?
I feel like it's gotten back on track
Hmm.
recently. I do feel like it was going in a direction that was a little intimidating for me as an athlete. I felt like it was getting bigger and bigger and bigger and a little bit stressful because it's like some of these women, I'm watching them and they're, you try not to compare yourself, but it's like, man,
Hmm.
some of these ladies are able to just put on mass so quickly. They're making huge changes and, you're wanting to compete. And then it definitely caused me to question myself, like, okay, am I big enough for this division now?
Hmm.
And I think I heard a lot of that too. Like, okay, is she wellness? Is this getting too big for wellness? What is wellness? Is it morphing into something else? But I feel like last year when I turned pro, I was on stage with several other women who was really unsure if I was going to take this show. It wasn't like I stepped on stage and was like, I got this. There was
Hmm.
some really developed women up there, some good size, but it is not what Tyler Mannion or any of them went with that night. They went with me. And I talked to them about that. And I think that this past year, we're trying to rein wellness back into what it was intended to be. And Tyler started doing his videos, discussing his critiques and criteria. And I think it made it more clear what he's actually looking for in wellness and what he's not looking for. And he doesn't want overpowering glutes and he doesn't want overpowering legs. He wants the legs and glutes a little bit more in proportion. He doesn't want them extremely striated. So I feel like people started to see and even had to come down a little bit, and so I feel like wellness is in a good spot right now.
Yeah.
But I think it was getting a little bit out there for a minute.
Yeah, when I was talking to some of the girls, one thing they pointed out was that on the pro state level, they were getting everything right. But
Yeah,
the problem they were starting to see is in the amateur level and the NPC levels, where the girls were getting really big, and it was just, and they were being rewarded. And sometimes I understand the judges because you have to judge what's up there,
right.
even though the look might not be necessarily the look for wellness exactly. If that's the best look that's up there, they
What
have
you've
to
got.
reward it. Right.
Right.
So like what I was seeing early on, to your point, was that some of them were like almost like bodybuilder legs and just jumping into wellness. And that was like essentially what we were seeing. But now I think if they started to come down some, and a lot of the girls that I've talked to are more are big, they're kind of more what they're looking for. So yeah,
I
no,
agree.
agreed. So when did you get your pro card? Last year?
I got it in September of 2023
Oh,
because
20.
I took a
Okay.
year off. Yeah, I took a year off and I took a whole year just to kind of grow and then I'll make my debut this
Mhm.
year.
Got it. Got it.
So
How was your experience in, I mean, I know you talked a little bit about it, but how was your experience in getting your pro card at that show? Did you have, were you nervous? I know you said you weren't necessarily sure you were going to win, but
I wasn't sure I was going to win, but you know what? That was probably the most peaceful I've ever gone into a competition. I feel like I spent so much time in that prep. It wasn't a rushed prep. I feel like I really did everything within my control to bring my very best, like that I've ever brought, as far as like the most conditioned I've ever been, the most size I've ever had, posing, suit, everything I felt really peaceful about for the first time. Like I just didn't have any nerves. So I was like, let's go and,
mhm,
let's see what happens. These, women at the national level, amazing athletes. So it's always an honor to be there and to compete. And I think it was just so exciting. No nerves at all, just pure excitement, pure joy. It was my husband and I. The kids didn't join us on this one. It was just the two of us. And I remember when I got out there for comparisons, almost immediately they put me in the center box. And once you get in that center box, you're so excited and you're just like,
mhm,
okay, I hope I stay. And they put me in that center box. They kept moving everyone and they never moved me. Like once they got me in that center box, they kept me there and I just couldn't believe it. I'm watching everything happen, but still I'm like, okay, I know how things go at these shows. Something could change,
mhm.
tonight at finals, or maybe I'm thinking I'm here in the box, but I'm actually splitting the box. I don't know. Um, but I was just overwhelmed. So I started to just cry afterwards. Like, I cannot even believe like they put me in the center box. This is amazing. Like, oh my gosh, I feel so good. I was thinking, okay, I'm at least top two. I'm top two. I could be second.
Mhm.
And my husband was like sure that I had it, but he wasn't trying to like stress me out. So he was like, we'll see tonight. You never know. And
I,
sure enough, I got it.
I'm kind of like him. In my mind, I feel like I got it, or someone that I'm close to like has it, but I don't want to over hype them up too much, because
Yeah.
if it go that way, it's a huge letdown. So
Exactly. And
trying to,
we've been there because we've seen it where we think it's going to go one way for someone and then it goes a little different. And we're like, oh, okay. So I think he was definitely trying to spare me just in case it
yeah,
was that second place.
I'm looking at some of the pictures from that show, and I'll put these up when the episode goes up. But
Okay.
you definitely deserve to win. I mean, there was a few girls that were very good, but I
Yeah.
don't think anyone has, as polished as you is on this stage. So you took a
Thank you.
year, of course. You took a year off in your debut. Do you know when you're going to debut?
I am planning on debuting spring. Um, very soon actually, but it will just depend. My body seems to be responding right now to the prep pretty well, but I want to come correct and I want to come completely conditioned. So, probably the latest my debut will be May.
Mhm.
I was looking at maybe Miami Pro.
Yeah,
Uh,
it's a good one.
we'll see. Yeah. So we'll see.
That's
I'm planning my schedule really around my kids' birthdays because we have five kids and there's literally a birthday like every month. Or Mother's Day. I really wanted to do that Pittsburgh, the new Super Show, but it's
hmm
literally on Mother's Day weekend. So I'm like, That one just won't work.
Yeah.
But so we're trying to plan it around that. I want to do if my body will allow, I want to do at least maybe 2 or 3 shows this season and
Mhm.
just really see. And this season feels really different for me too. I like going into a pro season, it's a very different feeling than preparing for nationals.
Mhm.
I just feel like really excited to step on stage with other pro women, women that I admire, women that I've watched. It's like
Mhm.
this feels really exciting for me that like I might be, arm in arm with these women that I've been watching as pros.
It probably feels a little surreal too, just now. You were gunning for it and now you're there,
And
and
now you're
so
there.
and now
Yeah.
and now like the beginning of another journey starts. And
Definitely, definitely. And it's very motivating because you want to rise to the occasion. And that's why I took a year of an off season because it was such an honor to be awarded that pro card that I was like, let me give more time in this off season, really give all I can to make any improvements and, come as good as I can. I know this sport is, they say it's a young person's game. I'm getting up there, so it's taking my body sometimes a little bit longer to respond. I'm having those little aches and pains, so I needed to give myself time and, just really be
yeah.
able to make some
How
changes.
how was your off season? You took it to Google. Was there anything specific that you did that kind of facilitated growth? Was there something that you like really focused on?
So, I focused more than ever on rest and recovery this
Mm,
off season. I've never like I'm just a gym girl. I want to be in there. I love it. Like I love lifting weights. I love being in the gym. It's just great feeling for me. Good stress relief. So taking days off, it's like sometimes that's more mentally difficult for me than anything. It's like I want to be in the gym. So I'm taking 2 to 3 days off, really 3 days off a week. And my body definitely needed that. I am sure that I was guilty of overtraining
mhm.
many times, in my bodybuilding career. So
Right.
this has been good for me to do this and also just time to grow conservatively because it's not easy to put on tissue. And, I am prioritizing my health and doing things as good as I can just through nutrition,
Mhm.
progressive overload, and it takes time. So I just didn't
Yeah.
want to rush it. But mainly rest and recovery has been the biggest change.
Right. Well, I mean, first of all, that's great because I think a lot of people don't really on that. They think that majority of the growth happens in the gym. While that's the stimulus, as you well know,
Right.
like really that growth happens when you're recovering. And so when
Yeah.
you're eating, recovering, resting, and
Yes.
I feel like I made my biggest strides when I just kind of started to think outside the box and was like, okay, like, going crazy, throughout the week, just training nonstop is not helping me. I took a step back. I started more real tissue. And that's sometimes like things that are easily have gotten, you lose quickly too.
Yeah.
So that progression of like putting on real lean tissue is good because then you can keep it for longer.
I agree. I agree. And what you said there too, it's like going hard in the gym. I think that that's, it's necessary, but it's a misconception that people have like, and it's a good mindset. It's like, good work ethic. They want to work hard,
Mhm.
hard, hard, workhorse. But it's like you have to allow for that recovery. You can't just nail yourself, run yourself into the ground day after day and not allow that
Yeah.
time for your body to recover, or you're
Yeah.
not going to have the results you want to have.
Right, you're not going to look good and you're
Yeah.
not going to look as good as you need to, especially when your whole goal is to compete against other people. So,
Yeah.
they're going to be doing those things and you can't be at a disadvantage. You want to do whatever you can, to get that advantage. And I
Yeah.
mean, I think you're going to be a great pro because you're doing all the right things and you're a coach yourself, right? Correct?
Yeah, I coach lifestyle clients, competitors. I try to take on just like a handful per season because it's a lot more in depth and a lot more hands-on.
Hmm.
And then I'm a posing coach too.
Awesome. So you're fully invested in
I
this
am.
sport. And do you just do posing for wellness or do you do posing for multiple divisions?
No, I do posing for bikini,
Hmm.
wellness, and now I'll do it for the new fit model division as well.
Okay. Okay.
And if I could flare my lats at all, I might take on figure.
Well, all you have to do is learn how to teach them to flare their lats,
Yeah,
not
exactly. If I
necessarily.
can teach you to play your lats, if I can work on finding how to give these cues.
Yeah,
But I
that's funny.
absolutely adore posing and I love posing other women and just like helping boost their confidence, helping them because they work so hard. We all work so hard on this package. And it's like, if you don't know how to present it, it is such a shame. So,
Absolutely.
I absolutely love seeing them transform.
I mean, so many people have great physiques and just don't
Mhm.
know how to pretend. They lose points because of that, and
Exactly.
sometimes they well because of that. And that, like you said, it's really sad to see because they've worked so, you know, off season prep, all this time, this
Yeah.
energy, money, and sweat,
Nailing
and
everything else,
right.
nailing the
It,
diet. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I think posing has really exploded, like posing coaching, because it used to like not be a thing or it wasn't as popular, but now I think realizing how important posing really is.
I agree because when I first started, it was actually really difficult for me to find a posing coach. And my posing for bikini was just terrible. And, I'm not shy. I have, I'm coordinated. I have rhythm. So moving and doing these things isn't difficult for me, but I just didn't understand the mandatory poses. And so that is actually what motivated me to become a posing coach because I was like, your presentation is so important. I will never ever let one of my clients feel that
Mhm.
way, like feel unprepared on that stage. Like she's going to go up there and feel like she can present like a star.
Yeah. What do you prefer? Do you prefer lifestyle or do you prefer to coach
Competition.
competitors? Yeah, sorry, lost
I
track of my own words there for a second.
I honestly think I love them both for different reasons. Like my lifestyle clients, I really, really enjoy them because, we're setting up habits for life.
Mm.
And just really getting them started on, investing in themselves and creating new habits. It's really rewarding. And most of them are with me for a very long time. I have clients who have been with me for years because I used to teach boot camp classes back in the day and they were with me there. Um, but the competitors, I don't know, I take on like a mama bear role there, and that's very special to me. Like we really create some bonds there. Like the women that I teach competitive or coach competitively, there's a lot of bonding that goes on there because it's such an emotional sport. And I try to coach them mentally too, because the things that I experience, body dysmorphia, different things as a woman, comparing yourself to others, I try to help them not fall in those same traps that I fell in and not down those same rabbit holes. And I try to just like really mentor them through that, the mental part of it all, so they can stay, healthy emotionally as well. Because I feel like first time competitors, it can really take a toll on you after the show when you start just being a normal person again and having, a normal amount of body fat again. These women get so used to seeing themselves stage lean, and we have to remember that that's not sustainable, you know.
Yeah, I think that's a big thing because when you're competing, like you said, you look so great. Like especially when you're at the show. I mean, you've even if you're not in place as well as you should, that's probably the best, that your body has had that year or whatever you want to say, that time period. So then to go back and put like body on and look like a normal person, it can really like play a part in your psyche. You start really kind of not realizing that this is, like you said, it's not sustainable. You
Yeah.
can't stay forever. And people that have tried, unfortunately, we see, a lot of influencers that I feel like are forced to stay stage lean because they're constantly in front of the camera.
Right.
A lot of them lose their lives. They have
Yeah.
consequences. And so I think that's important. They didn't have this during the magazine era.
Right.
Camera wasn't always in your face. Now there
Yeah.
is. So
It's a lot of pressure. It's
yeah,
a lot of pressure. And then, like you're saying, the women who do feel that pressure to stay stage lean all the time, these are the women on Instagram that a lot of other women are looking to. And so they think that's the standard.
yeah,
And
yeah.
that's why I feel like it's really important. I'll share my off-season body. I'll share, and that's something I try to impart in them too is to really, if you love bodybuilding, let's learn together to love every part of the journey because you can't have that beautiful stage lean physique without muscle, and you can't get
Mhm.
there without eating and without giving yourself sufficient nutrients and, recovery time. And you cannot just be in this deficit all the time. It's
Yeah.
just not healthy. And I think when you do learn to kind of love every stage of it, it's so much more rewarding and so much more fun. Like I loved my off-season shape this year. Like that was just like such a good feeling, such a healthy feeling,
Mhm.
energetic. And in all honesty, I kind of prefer myself with a little bit more, not excessive or anything, but a little bit more body fat. Stage lean isn't even my favorite
Yeah.
place to be. It's what I know is necessary and I'm competitive, so I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
But it's not my favorite place to be.
Sure, sure. And I think I think with regard to women, I think there's also there's biological benefit things of body fat on you. And, being that plays with your hormones and plays with other
Yes.
things that
Yeah.
men don't necessarily experience.
Right.
And so
Fertility.
yeah, so
Yeah.
that those are important things to really to consider with women. I'm glad that someone like you is talking to them, especially young girls that are coming into the
Yeah.
sport. They don't know these things.
I agree. I agree. Definitely the younger girls, I like to take them under my wing and, give them as much advice as I can on that front because, yeah, it can wreak havoc on your hormones and have terrible consequences later for these young women who do actually want to have children later, you know.
Right.
So it is important to be educated. And on that note, I like to encourage women too to do their homework. Don't
Mhm.
just aimlessly take what someone tells you to take or do what someone tells you to do. Always be educated and look things up yourself, research them yourself. Don't take just any coach's word for it. Know the science behind it. Check it out for
Right.
yourself and be sure you understand what you're doing to your body.
Yeah. Yeah, very, very true. I mean, to that point, to go on a tangent a little bit about the drug use, it's part of the sport, that people use it, to as, again, it's part of the sport. There's nothing you can do about it. But there is a way to do it and educate yourself without a lot of times what these coaches will do, the unscrupulous coaches will put you on a bunch of stuff and you'll get good results because that's just what happens, but then you're going to suffer the consequences, but they don't have the consequences, you do. So
Right. They
and,
want you to look a certain way and they're not necessarily worrying about all the things you'll deal with later. Or
yeah,
maybe deal with currently, like some of the side effects that women will have on the spot, and no one talks to these girls ahead of time. But there's a bit of athlete responsibility there too, because you, like I said, always know what you're doing to your body.
sure. Sure.
Yeah,
Yeah. And I mean, it's amazing to me because I work in the medical field. My wife does too. And people are very conscious about what drugs your doc gives you. Like they'll question, they'll ask, whatever. Those same people be as conscious about what your coach gives you, or tells you to do. It's like you should have the same inquisitive mind. Someone is giving you which is essentially, a medication. You want to make what what are the side effects? What are the dosages that, need to be taken? Don't just take people's word for it because I was just watching something on Instagram or Reel, and they were talking about particular steroid, and I was listening. I was like, that's not right.
right.
Like that doesn't even make any sense. But
It's bro science.
right. Yeah, exactly. I'm like, that's not what this medication does. Or,
Yeah,
but it had a lot of likes, a lot of people
yeah.
listen, and that's
And then
unfortunately
they
the
take it as
case.
fact,
Absolutely.
unfortunately. Yeah,
Absolutely. So, yeah, is a double-edged sword, right? Like
yeah,
there's blood like with regard to like you're coaching, you're posing, you're able to promote yourself, but then there's downsides as well, right?
right. Yeah,
Um,
and to me, honestly, I guess it just depends on the person, what your goals are, everything. You've got to assess that too. Like, what are your priorities? What are your goals in bodybuilding? What are your long-term goals in life? And if you're new to this sport, I would always say see what your body can do. Like, check out
Sure.
what your body can do first with like proper nutrition, proper lifting. Like, just check it out. See what you can do.
Right. Right.
You know?
So, a lot of times that people start on that stuff really early,
Yeah,
and
out of the
naturally,
gate. Out of the
yeah, out
gate.
of the gate, out of the gate, yeah, full tilt, yeah. So it's unfortunate. So are you you were thinking Miami? So you're currently still technically growing, right? You're not
No, I'm
in a
actually
prep.
in a cut now.
Oh,
So
okay,
I'm
okay.
in a deficit right now. I've been in a deficit for a few weeks and my body is starting to respond. I'm starting to tighten up. I've already dropped some body fat. So, we're trucking along, trying to go slow and keep
Mhm.
as much size as we can and as much as that tissue as we can. So we're trying to keep protein high and, do everything conservatively so that I can keep as much size as possible. Um, like I said, I'm only 5'1". I'm not a big girl, so I'm like, let me keep every bit of muscle that I put on if possible. But yes, so we're shooting for, I'd really like to do this show that's the end of March. I just don't know if it's being a little too um uh I'm just not sure if I can really be cut enough in time. So we'll see. We'll see how my
Yeah.
body responds because I've been in a surplus for so long. My body's responding pretty well to this decrease in food,
Mhm.
but you know, you just don't know. And I'm not really going to be hurt over it. I just want to look right. So we'll just kind of play it by ear and see. But I am really confident that I can be lean enough by May. I did not put on a lot of body fat this building season. I
Yeah.
didn't purposely, stay too lean, but I think we just did a good job on like the diet and, the right amount of surplus. I didn't need to be in like anything crazy, put on a lot of body fat. It just makes it so much harder when it is time to cut. But I think I put on a healthy amount.
Yeah. I
But yeah,
actually
May.
I was thinking about that point that you made about not putting on too much body fat. That's another thing that I tend to see is that when people or go into surplus, they go way overboard.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, but that's, and a lot of times you'll see it with they'll because they'll boast about their weight and I'm like, but that's, at a certain point, you're not gaining any more muscle. It's just you're just adding
Yeah.
body fat that you're gonna have to cut later. It's so difficult though. Why
It
even do that?
is. It is. It is so difficult. And I've been there too, actually. The year before I went pro that building season, I put on size and I was like loving it. And I was like, man, these glutes, like glutes were popping. But I just put on so much excess and I put on a lot of body fat that year. And then when I cut down, it was like the majority of that was body fat. It was not glute muscle, it
Yeah.
was fat. And it's really hard to see that if you're just if instead of taking time to accrue lean tissue,
Hmm.
you're putting on too much body fat. It's hard to gauge. So this year I
Sure.
was like, yeah, we're not going to repeat that because, like you said, it was so hard to take off. And then it's disappointing because when you take it off, a lot wasn't even muscle.
Yeah, are you one do you have a difficult time cutting? Like do you love food or not so much?
I love food. So I
Hmm.
eat, my husband's a competitor as well. He's a pro in
Hmm.
classic physique.
Okay,
And I
awesome.
actually can probably out eat him. I'm always hungry. I can eat like every 2.5 hours. I do not miss meals. But I'm also really disciplined. Like I'm super focused when it is time for me to cut. Like I am weighing to the gram. Like if
Hmm.
if it says 100 grams of rice and 105 goes in there, I'm taking out 5 grams. Like I'm just anal like that when it comes to it because I want to step on stage and know like I gave it all I could, not be like, man, I should have followed the diet or I should have
Right,
done better. It's like I can feel great about whatever the outcome is if I know I did my part and did like, did what I was supposed to do. So
sure.
I'm good when it comes to dieting. I do have to do my little tricks to help me because I do get hungry. So I'll have like my sparkling waters or I might have, a little tea or something. Those things tend to help me
Hmm.
when I have sweets cravings or stuff. So
Hmm.
I love to eat, but I'll do the diet because
But
it's
you're
like I'm gonna do what I gotta do.
right, you're disciplined enough to,
Yeah.
to handle that.
And
Yeah.
and I'm not so like when I was an early competitor, because people will ask me, like, what do you want to eat afterwards? I'm not super food focused. Like, I can't wait to have a good brunch. Don't get me wrong. Like, I
Hmm.
cannot wait. Brunch is my favorite, but I'm not so food focused where I'm like saving reels and like saving all that stuff with food because I think that's another healthy thing. I've kind of come, the more you compete, you kind of learn like, food isn't going anywhere. This is just like a short term thing. I'm in a deficit right now because I really need to get lean because I want to show up on stage correct, but like I literally have my whole life to eat all these great foods and I can have my weekly free meals in my build. And it's just not that serious and not that fulfilling to me anymore um, to binge or anything. So it's
Hmm.
like I've gotten to a point where mentally I'm really okay with what I've got to do.
Yeah, it's a habit to bend after a show. It's one of those things I kind of talk to when I talk to, just tell them it's, you can eat more. Obviously, you're after the show. It doesn't, you don't have to necessarily restrict, but I wouldn't go overboard because that's when you start gaining all that water weight and there's flooding
Right.
your system. It's very
Yeah.
unhealthy. All that pressure on your organs is just same. It's the same way like if you met somebody who was starving and then they the recommendation would not be to just gorge yourself on food. It's,
Right.
you want to start slow.
Painful.
Right.
Yeah.
You want to
It's
start slow.
painful.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
that's the same concept. So
Yeah, I mean, and Andre, honestly, and I learned that after shows because we would sometimes not even go out to eat. We would have food up in our room. We would just get tons of stuff and just be eating pizza and little treats and all this stuff together until we're both just sick.
yeah,
And then
yeah.
he's swollen the next day, like his ankles are like this big. So that was a lesson we learned early on too, like not worth it. We're in pain. So now we will go out, have a plate, and
Hmm.
then go back to the room and we don't have 500 things there. And it's like we feel good, we got our little treats and we had a nice time and we had a good meal, but we didn't kill ourselves where our stomachs are distended and we feel terrible,
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
little things you learn, I,
Right.
I think your early shows, you can feel so deprived that it's very hard to control those reactions post show. And then you see so many things on social media of people with their donuts and all their things. So it almost seems like it's what you're supposed to do after
Right.
a
Right.
show is go a little crazy.
Yeah, it does seem that way. It's like, well, this is what this is. You compete and then you
Yeah.
eat a bunch of food.
Eat all your
That's
stuff. Where's your
yeah.
food? Yeah.
Yeah. So and yeah, that's true. People make reels. They they have their donuts, their
Yeah.
sweets. So they're constantly putting up on their social media. And
Yeah.
I get it. It's kind of fun, but
It is. Yeah.
I wouldn't go overboard like you said.
Don't go,
It's
and that's all it is. It's just
yeah.
moderation because it is fun. Because Andre and I do the same thing. Like I couldn't wait to go to Voodoo, get some donuts, but we just learned to just take it easy. Just don't go ham because you're going to be in pain, and like you said, you're going to swell. You're not going to feel
Yeah.
good. It's not worth it. It's going to be there
Yeah.
tomorrow. Get a little bit, a little bit,
Absolutely.
and then just back off a little or
Yeah.
share.
I was going to ask you to pivot a little bit of training. Are you a volume or are you more of a heavyweight?
So I'm a little bit of both, but I
Hmm.
used to be a lot more volume, and Andre would actually get after me on that because it's just like I was like volume, volume, volume. When I first started training for wellness, that was like a lot of my program was high volume. But more recently, I have kind of transitioned and it's more about quality. And I'm really trying to focus on my tempo and, the depth and just I'm trying to have better sets. I'm not trying to lift as heavy. I'm trying to lift heavy, but it's like I'm getting to a point because I have gained a lot of strength, like in my hip thrusts, for
Hmm.
instance. I can lift pretty heavy on hip thrusts, but it's like I'm gonna get to a point where it's like I'm gonna break my back because I just cannot lift anymore. So I'm learning to back off the weight a little bit, slow that tempo way down, add resistance with bands. And I am doing a little bit of a combo of
Hmm.
higher volume days and then some days that are heavier weight, less volume.
So getting the benefit of both,
Right.
essentially, both styles. Yeah.
And in a cut, I'll usually have a little bit more volume.
Sure.
In the
Sure.
build, yeah, it's a little bit more heavy.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that makes sense because when you start reducing your calories, you're not as strong. And then once you get kind of closer to the show, it's also be kind of dangerous to push a lot of weight.
Right. It is harder. I am, however, trying to do better this year with watching what's like a mental excuse and what's
Hmm.
like really lack of strength because
Hmm.
I am strong and I don't want to get in there and be like, oh, but I didn't
Yeah.
have very much food this morning. So, because I still want to keep that stimulus high.
Hmm.
So I'm trying to really check myself there too and not make any of like the deficit excuses. It's like, okay, girl, you're really not starving. Your calories are not that low. Like, let's go ahead and get stimulated, push in here, you can lift this weight.
Right. I like what you said about the fact that what is meant like mental excuse like actually happening, there's reality of where you are maybe taking in less calories, and then there's
Right.
sometimes just the fact that you're telling yourself that is what's making you believe that.
For sure, your mind is so powerful. I think we have so many self-imposed limitations sometimes. Like even I'll be honest with you, I would have never, if I had not have seen these other women my age and mothers at my husband's show to inspire me, that was a definite self-imposed limitation. Like I'm too old, I already have 5 children, like I couldn't do this. I would
Mhm.
have never known that my body could do the things that it's doing right now because I just thought that's like amazing for them, but I mean, I couldn't do that now. So it's
Yeah.
like I gave myself these limitations and there was no truth to it.
Yeah.
You get
Yeah.
out there and you can do it.
Yeah, yeah, it takes a lot to push past, those limits. Even myself, I'm being nine, I'll be turning 40 soon, and sometimes I'll feel myself being in, I don't know if you want to call it motion or desire. And I was like, man, I didn't feel like this when I was 25. What has changed? Well, I mean, outside of my age, nothing changed. Life is more difficult, or I can't go to the gym, or I can't train hard, so then I have to tell myself, okay, well, just get to it, get to work,
Yeah.
and that's I think that's important, especially as you get older. That's important.
Yeah, no, for sure. It really is. And we'll be shocked at what we can do. And sometimes you need, outside influence to remind you of that too. I think that's why if you have a partner or a friend or something, that's really helpful as well. Um, because even when it comes to getting in the gym and progressing, it's like on the weekends, Andre has more time. He's not working. We live together. And I notice like I can be so much more productive sometimes because I am not afraid. It's like I know he's right there to spot me, so
Hmm.
I can try to push myself a little bit more than I would by myself.
Yeah.
And that's a good eye opener for me too, because that shows me like, okay, I could have totally done this last week when he wasn't here, and I just told myself I couldn't, but it wasn't
Right.
even that hard.
Yeah, yeah, no, I get that. Yeah, absolutely. Well, I didn't want to leave the episode talking about, we started off talking about anniversary and, marriage, but I know you mentioned that you and your husband were starting a podcast soon. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, yeah. So we're starting a podcast soon called The Cynic Meets Sunshine. And we're hoping to drop our first episode on Valentine's, actually. So we're very excited. Yeah, we're just gonna kind of introduce ourselves to everybody, talk a little bit about our dynamic and our marriage, and um, offer advice, tips,
Hmm.
things that we've found really helpful through the years and see if it can't help other people who are not just married, but, in relationships or wanting to be in long-term relationships, healthy relationships.
Hmm.
We're not marriage counselors or experts, but we are, married 26 years, 5 kids. We've got a lot of life experience and, we feel like we can share some good stuff.
Yeah. I mean, I would consider you experts, just for the time that you've and
That's put in.
yeah, I mean, I forgot what the hours or like yearly for someone to master a task. I think if they said like 10 years. So you've got a little more than double that
We've
in
we've
marriage. So
mastered it. We've
yeah.
mastered it. Yeah, we definitely felt like masters on our anniversary trip. We were
Yeah.
feeling pretty proud of ourselves.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. Well, if somebody wanted to get you on an episode of a podcast to reach out to you for coaching, posing, whatnot, what would be the best way for them to do that?
Instagram is excellent. So Tanisha, or actually TP Fitness underscore
Mhm.
IFBB Pro, or they can email me at TP underscore fitness at outlook.com.
Awesome. And guys, I'm going to link everything at the bottom of this video just to make it easier for you to reach out to Tanisha. Thank you so much for coming on the show. I really enjoyed it, and I'm sure
Thank
this
you.
this is not going to be the only time we get to get. I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank
All
you
right.
so much for having me. It was fun.
Of course. Take care. Bye bye.
Thanks. Bye.